All right, welcome everybody. Even if you can't join us, I wanted to go ahead and record this. We are here. It is our 2021 Reagan Virtual Science Fair meeting. And so this year we are going to have a virtual science and engineering fair. The projects will not be due until December 14th. Let me double check the date. Yep. So our virtual science fair projects would not be due until Tuesday, December 14th. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and do a shared screen. And the first thing, if you are going to have some interest in the science fair, is we want to go ahead and get you set onto Google Classroom. So let me just go ahead and pull up our Google Classroom. Let me get it set before I click on the shared screen. Okay. And we should be on shared screen. Okay, so you should see we have a Google Classroom that is specifically designed for our school site. It includes all of the documents that you would want, that you may need to do a science or engineering experiment. So let me kind of walk through some of those now. So let me kind of go. I think I put everything that was the newer stuff towards the bottom. So what I did was, we've had this Google Classroom for a couple, 3 years now. And so some of the stuff that was older, I took some of that off. Some of the things though were really good resources that if you were kind of struggling, like if this is the very first science experiment you've ever done, or maybe you've done a science experiment, but you're not really sure about an engineering project. So I shared and kept some of those really wonderful resources. So this is a really old document. It's a PDF file. This is a guide. So notice it's called Elementary Science Fair Planning Guide. Like, where do you begin in the whole thing? So if you've never done a project, or if it's been a while and you'd like to kind of review some of that. So here are some different advice and strategies and tips, examples you're going to see. So this planning guide is a really good place to begin. Now, I just want to be very clear with everybody. This planning guide is not the same thing as your display board. It is not the same thing as your science fair journal. It is not the same thing as the abstract. Those would be something different, and we'll talk about that all in good time. So I just want to be clear, this is just a planning guide that you would use to start the process. So you're going to see here that on this planning guide, we have a table of contents because there are quite a few pages in this presentation. Hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Mrs. Nielsen, if we've not met before, just to make sure you know who I am. And I am our science fair coordinator here at Reagan Elementary. And this year we are doing a virtual science and engineering fair. So what I'm doing is I am showing families and I'm recording this. So I have gone through and I just explained that we have a Google Classroom that is dedicated to our science and engineering fair. And that's where you would find all of these wonderful resources. So the same digital flyer that you received with the invitation and the Zoom link, that would also be where you have the link so that you can join our Google Classroom. So I am recording, and so let me come back. I'm going to come back to our displays. I'm sorry, our planning guide, excuse me. So hopefully you're seeing on the shared screen, it says Elementary Science Fair Planning Guide. Now, so here is where I left off. You can see from the table of contents, it breaks it down. There are a few steps involved. So when we look at this planning guide, it's kind of coaching you through the whole process. So in step one, like, how do you come up with a good question? So we're going to look at that on page 5. Step 2 would be doing the research and forming a hypothesis, and that information will be on page 6. Step 3 is going to be testing that hypothesis and doing the experiment. And again, you can find that on page 8. And a lot of the times, parents or kids, we all need a little guidance. The guidance, a little extra work comes from how do you build a data table? How do you organize that data table? So that's the kind of things that are in this planning guide. Step 4, we see what's the presentation look like. And this year, our science and engineering fair is all virtual. So nobody is going to be making those big cardboard, trifold displays. We're not going to have those this year. Everything will be done like on a Google slide, and I'm going to show you that. And I also have that template for you on the Google Classroom. So I'm going to kind of jump to a couple things I want to just go over. I usually tease the kids at this point and say, unfortunately, the Disney Channel has told you some things that are not true. Usually the Disney Channel tells kids that doing a volcano model, usually those characters always win at the science fair. Unfortunately, a model of a volcano is what we call a science demonstration. It's not actually an experiment. So when we think about that, please don't plan to do a volcano model. And secondly, the other thing that the Disney Channel tells you, tells the kids, is that the solar system model, they try to tell the kids that that's also a science fair project. A model of the planets, unfortunately, is again just a demonstration. It's just a model. You're not actually experimenting with anything. So when we think about that, I just wanted to kind of make sure that was very clear. Welcome. Just so you know, families, I am recording this. So I'm going to kind of keep going, and then we are going to upload this video so that anybody who may like to go back and watch it, or maybe they missed our presentation, for whatever reason you would want to go back and watch it, it will be recorded. Okay, so we talked about no volcanoes. We talked about no models of the solar system. Now, so what is an experiment? So you're going to see in the planning guide that they talk about like what is an experiment, and they go through all of that advice right there. Sorry, just got a little tickle. Now, so I'm not going to go through, this is like a 17-page PDF file. I'm not going to go through all pages. So I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple things. So you want to think about what category are you interested in? There's usually like 4 different categories. We have life science, we have physical science, we have earth and space sciences, and we have engineering. So those are kind of the major categories. And then from there, then you kind of focus on what areas of science in that specific category. Okay, so you can see that this planning guide, it coaches you through the process. Again, it's 17 pages. I'm not going to go through all of that pages. You don't want me to do that either. You can access this on our Google Classroom. So let me go back and I'll show you. So the school has had a Google Classroom dedicated for the Science and Engineering Fair for a few years, and that's where we have all of these resources. So parents, kids, this is where you want to get connected. And give me just a second. I'm going to stop screen sharing and I'm going to show you where and how do you get connected onto the Google Classroom. So let me come back and let me go back to shared screen. Okay. So we talked about the Google Classroom. How do you get there? So right here on this digital flyer, the same way that you got onto the Zoom link, if you look right here, it says, join our Google Classroom, Reagan Virtual Science Fair for resources, click the link. When you click the link, you'll be asked to log into your email. What I recommend is that the students sign up using their student Google email. And then that way you can go through using the student's email and get connected, and you have access to all of those resources. So right there is how you would get connected onto the Google Classroom. You know, for elementary students, I find that a lot of times this is the first time you've ever considered doing a science experiment or an engineering project. And that's great. I'm super excited that the kids and parents, you're probably excited too about doing a great project. So sometimes though, I know it's overwhelming, it's a little intimidating, I get it. So I want to try to make everybody's life so much easier this year. So I share these websites every year, but I wanted to kind of go through them a little bit because sometimes when the kids go through them, it doesn't make as much sense as when the families and the adults go through them. So if you're looking for science experiments, if you click on the link, it's going to take you to the website. Now, this website, what it's doing is it's kind of walking you through. So it's saying you can search over 500 ideas. You could browse topics. So they have topics for elementary, middle, and high school. So you could click also here just to see a range or different types of topics. And then there are also some other very helpful websites that are linked there for you. If you know, like, hey, I'm really interested in doing, there was a cool project with candy and it had, you know, something about like the colors of the rainbow and osmosis. So you could kind of think about, okay, candy, osmosis. Maybe you're not sure what exactly was it about. So this one I know says it's about animals. We don't probably want that one. So I think the one I'm thinking of, I think it's usually called the Rainbow Bridge. So the Rainbow Bridge, for example, you could type that there. Oh gosh, and now I'm noticing that it's coming up with like engineering projects. You know, go figure. There's over 500 projects. So anyways, you can see how you can explore the website. Let's go on to some of these. Let's choose one. And I want to show you what it does. So the website will show you, like, here's the description. So if you want to see the project, that link didn't work. It gives a description and then it gives you the instructions right here. I'm not going to read through all of those things. I know you guys can do that on your own. I just wanted to show the families that it really does kind of walk you through the majority of the steps for the project, which, you know, in this day and age, we're busy. You guys are busy. It's going to make your life easier if they can help you and guide you. So one of my favorite websites that is a really good one is this Science Buddies. So Science Buddies is probably my favorite one. And they usually have like a project wizard, topic selection wizard, sorry. So when you go on to the link, and again, that's just from this digital flyer, so the same one you used for getting onto Zoom. So here on Science Buddies, if you go to the topic selection wizard, it'll kind of go through about 20 questions. And then what it does is it kind of focuses and narrows which projects you might be most interested in. Now they have thousands of projects on this website, so you're welcome to do any of the projects that you find that you're interested in. But in other words, if you don't know where to begin, then this topic selection wizard would be really helpful. So I would recommend that. You can see how it asks these different questions, like, you know, is it the student doing it by themselves? You know, is it an adult who's kind of helping me? So anyways, so you can go through those different ones. So you can see that you can also search by grade level. I'm teaching 4th grade this year, but you can see kinder through 5th grade for the elementary is represented, middle school, and then of course high school. So if you have older children and you'd like them to do a project as well. I'm going to choose 4th grade. So you can see it's asking because it's trying to tailor fit which projects would you maybe be most happy with. So when we think about that, you can see how it goes through and it's going to ask you, just so you know, some of you are unmuted, so I didn't want that to be a rude surprise for you. Now, so when we look at how do they present these experiments, let me show you. This is a fun one. We've done this one in class together. It doesn't take very much, very few materials. So let me show you what it looks like. So on Science Buddies, part of why I really love it is because it walks you through every single step. So it tells you like, what's the overall description? How long would it take you to do this experiment? So it says it's really short, 2 to 5 days. And it says the difficulty level is easy. So it's an easy project. Now, when you do a science experiment, there's a lot of parts and steps to the process. So when you think about that, what's great about Science Buddies is that it walks you through all of those steps. And that's really helpful for everybody. So you can see how this is basically just using like recycled materials. They show you pictures, like how should it look when you build it, which is helpful, right? So then you can see here that it goes through and it explains. So the background information is actually the explanation on how it works related to science. So here you see them, they're talking about kinetic energy, they're talking about Newton's third law of motion. And so it's all of those details about the science explanation that you're probably going to need for your project at some point. So when you look here on these tabs, notice that it breaks it down by category. So the materials, it tells you exactly what the materials are, how many do you need. We saw what the picture looks like already, so it's easy for you to kind of get an idea of what should it look like. So when you're going through your child's science experiment with them, it really guides you. It guides you through the entire way, and that makes life really easy. And that's what we want right now. We don't want to complicate things. We don't want to make anybody feel overwhelmed and intimidated. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure I slow down and show you this. Now the procedure, those are the step-by-step directions of what do you do with the experiment. So it says this engineering project is best described by the engineering design process as opposed to the scientific method. So like if you choose to do this balloon powered car, it's, in other words, it's more of an engineering project. It's not a science experiment. So there is a difference. And so I just kind of want to make sure I touch upon that. So notice how it talks about, you know, like where do you begin? What's the overall? How do you go about designing your car? Notice that it's just a hand-drawn sketch. It's nothing fancy. It's nothing on the computer. It's just written on a blank piece of paper. So, you know, low tech. So when we think about that, you can see how they're walking you through step by step of where do you begin in this process. So that's one of the reasons why I really love the Science Buddies website. And those old CDs or DVDs, you know, some of us aren't using those anymore. And so maybe you can find one you really don't like and you can use those and use recycled materials. Now, I know that they're going to talk here about using a digital camera or a smartphone. You are going to want to take pictures. So let me just talk about that. According to Riverside County Science and Engineering Fair rules, please do not have your child's face in the photos. That may seem mean, but they actually don't want the kid's face in the photos. They just want to see what they did, either for the engineering project or the science experiment. So just remember, when you're taking the photos, it's no faces. It's okay if if the children's hands or feet are in the pictures, just no face. That's the one big thing. So you do want to take pictures as you go through the steps, but you're not going to put them on a display board. So you don't even actually have to print them out. I was kind of teasing somebody the other day. I said, you know, the one great thing about virtual science and engineering fair is that you don't have to spend all of that money on the printing, you know, the colored printing cartridges. You don't have to print anything out. And then you also, you can, when it's virtual, you know, you can use clip art, you can add photos, you can change the color and themes, and it's, you know, you have all of those wonderful graphics that you can work with. So just to be clear, it is a virtual science and engineering fair. We are not doing the cardboard trifold displays. You don't need a poster board. There is nothing that you need to print out that goes to be glued on anything, just so we're clear. So you can see here that when you go through the engineering process, part of it is being able to test your design. So they're asking you all of those important guiding questions that you would want to do an engineering project. So you can see this was what they came up with. Okay, they show you, here's how one person set it up. Like, how do you test it? So what they're doing here is they have on the tabletop, they've set up tape, they've measured it, and I would write the measurements along the side of the tape. That's what I would do. Because when you're testing it, you probably need to know, like, how far did that little balloon car go? So, and then the other thing that's great about Science Buddies is notice they are showing you how should you set up your data table. Well, here, right there, you could just copy that example. Don't copy their data. So the parts right here that you see, you don't need that, but the headings where you could say, you know, the item, maximum number, things like that. So then they're showing you how do you set it up to test it. So they're showing you like finish or start area A, finish area B. Here are the measurements along the side. And you saw how they just used tape. Painter's tape would be perfect. So you can see why I like this website. They're talking about when you're testing it and if you're adding weights to the car, how does it affect it during the testing process? So you can see how they're showing you examples of what that might look like. Now, so that is under the procedure. That's a lot of information. And then, so what if you want to make it your own? Maybe you want to do just a little bit of a change in the design. Fabulous. That is exactly what the Science and Engineering Fair is for. So trying those new ideas, checking to see, what if I make this one change? How does that affect the outcome? That's exactly what you're doing. So this balloon powered car, I've done this in the classroom. It's not really hard. And so because they give you like the pictures, they show you what it should look like. They walk you through step by step. Hopefully, you know, that would be one that you might consider doing. So I wanted to just show you also, so there are 6 websites. Science Buddies is not the only one. I don't work for them, but their stuff is really thorough. And that's what I really like about their stuff. So you can see that there are some other websites there, and I'm going to let you kind of explore those on your own. So if you're just joining us a little bit later, I want to make sure you know that one of the important things that you're going to need is that you want to get connected with our Google Classroom that is for the Reagan Virtual Science Fair. So that's where all of the digital templates and resources are found. So you would just click right there. I recommend having the student log in with their student Google email, okay? And I would get them connected on that. Okay, so we've talked about that. Here's what the Google Classroom looks like for those of you who are joining us just a little bit later. So you can see it says Reagan Virtual Science and Engineering Fair Resources. There's a lot of stuff on here. This year, just so we're very clear with each other, the science fair, you're not going to print anything. You're not going to bring a display board. The projects are due December 14th in the morning. And so you would simply email me what your child has completed for their science project or for their engineering project. So you would just simply email it. Okay. Now, so I just kind of wanted to go through some of these things you're going to see. There's where it's talking about science buddies. Are you looking for an idea? This is the planning guide. In case you missed it earlier, I talked a little bit briefly about the elementary science fair planning guide. It is 17 pages long. It is excellent though. It coaches you through that entire process. Now, so when we talk about actually putting together and doing the typing for your project, so this is an old example of what we used to do, but now we have digital display boards. So we are going to look at those digital ones. We are following the guidelines and the rules from Riverside County. There is a whole Riverside County Science and Engineering Fair website. And so we follow all of that. I've made it easy because all of those important things that you would need for like the rules and any forms, all of them are here on this Google Classroom. Now, so when we talk about those rules and any forms that you might need, this is the link. So it's for the 2021-22 Riverside County Science and Engineering Fair rules and forms. So if I go back to my Google Classroom through the thread, I just want to show you. So we talked about the link for the rules. These are web links, and this is what like you would want to follow. There are links in here. So it's from Riverside County. And this one, notice there are some samples that you could look at. So let's look at those digital samples. So our students, we are in the elementary division, but if you have older kids and they would like to do the science fair or engineering projects, you could look at these. Okay, so these examples would be for the older students. So I'm going to click on the elementary. Oh, looks like it got updated or something. Let me go to the redirected page. So instead of having the cardboard printed pages that are glued on, this is what we have. So this year, everything is digital. So this example, it says digital display board, elementary division, and this was a student who did, that was their name. This is from last year. So you can see how what they have is they have a little bit of what they call the project summary. So it says, what's the objective? What's the hypothesis? List of materials. This one was it's kind of like a bibliography, like what are the resources that the student used. Here in the middle, we have it says summarize main questions and results. So the question or the problem, you would state that there. What was the testing variable? Like what is it that if you change this one part of it and you're checking to see what outcome does that have, that would be the testing variable, okay? So it says, in order to conduct this research, I will plant each hibiscus in a position that would allow each plant to receive a different amounts of sun. I will also have some of the plants protected with a plastic cover and some of the plants uncovered. So they're talking just very briefly of what it is that they're testing. So it's basically about what happens to the plant when they receive different amounts of sunlight. So you can see the photos, you can see here's the procedure, what are the results. So here's a graph that they did.
Miss Nielsen, can you enlarge that and blow it up a little bit?
Yeah, let me try. Good idea. Let me see. How is that for everybody? Is that better? Probably
Yes,
better. Thank you, Mr. Baldwin. I needed that. So we can see here, there's the conclusion, and then they took a picture of which one was the winner. And so they talked just a little bit about what, why was that the most successful plant? So anybody who had helped them, anybody who gave them like extra support, that's where the contributions and acknowledgements would go. Remember that we talked about in the photos, there are no student faces allowed. Notice that these are only photos of the plants that were used, okay? So let me go back, we'll look at, let me see here. I think this is the one I want to go to. Here we go. So this is on the RCS, it's called RCSEF is the website where it's from, and it is the virtual fair components for this year. So here is the digital display board, or I'm sorry, the template. This would be for middle school and for high school. So the one that we would want for our elementary students, we want to make sure we choose the one that says elementary division. So there is the template. You can see that all you have to do is type in, and notice that it's kind of like really short sentences or just bulleted points. You're not doing a lot of really expansive writing. So summarizing main ideas, that's really what we're talking about in the style of writing here. So you can see how this is on Google Slides, and the students would want to click on it. Notice that it says view only. So you would have to download or make your own copy. And the way that you would do that is you'd go to File, you would go to Make a Copy, and I would click on where it says entire presentation and then OK. And then it will make your very own copy that you can now type on. So that's where you would, once you've done the experiment and once you have the results and the photos, this is where you would start to type on that and put all of it together. Now, let me go back. Okay, so one of the things that's different is that there is no handwritten journal. Rather, all of the research would be typed. And so you can see here, this is for elementary, junior, and senior divisions. So it says template, digital research notebook. When you open it up, I want to point out, yes, it does look like a piece of paper. Yes, you are going to type on it. But notice that in its current form, it's only allowing to view it. So what you would need to do is, again, you would need to go to File. You'd need to go to Make a Copy, click on Entire Presentation, and then click on OK. Now you're going to have your own copy of it. That way you can start typing and working with it. So notice where it says student name, you actually want to type your student's first and last name. And I would put their grade level. So like I teach 4th grade, so I would have my students put their first name, last name, and then 4th grade. That's what I would do. Now, some of them are duplicate, the slides. Notice that there are several slides that you can type on. Some of them, notice this side of it is blank. This side has lines. So that would be the handwritten notes. So normally how we used to have a science fair journal and the kids would write it out. This is actually when they're doing, like if they were doing that balloon powered car, for example, they could upload the photo, put their sketch right here and talk about how is it that they are when they begin this project, how are they designing it? What exactly are they hoping for the results? So you can kind of go through that process. As always, I want to point out that when you are working on a journal, you want to put the dates. So every day that you're going in and you're working on it, you want to type the date, because that's how you would keep a record of, like, when did you work on it? You know, when did you get your testing done? What were the conclusions? What day did you form your conclusions and work on it? So this would be like your science fair journal. Let me close down a couple of these tabs. I've got quite a bit. So you can see here, this is the RCSEF virtual fair components for 2021-2022. And if you'd like to print it out at home, go right ahead, no problem whatsoever. So then the third part you see here, it says pre-recorded video presentations. Now in elementary, the kids are not required to do a video, and that's kind of nice. It is required for middle school and high school. So the junior divisions, you can see what grades that would be. Senior division, grades 9 through 12. Now, so one of the important forms, it's also another digital one, is the research abstract. So you can see here that the county has created a template and they put it on this PDF file. When you open that link, it looks like this. So you would write, what is the project title? Don't worry about the project ID number. That's what, like, my job would be. I would assign a project number, so you don't need to worry about that. You would put the students' names. You would also, and you know what I'd like is if you'd put the grade level. So having the grade level is helpful. If the students want to work with friends or a group, remember that the county rules say that there can be no more than 3 students in a group. The maximum number of students is 3. So you can see that that's where you have the place to type their names. Affiliated fair name, don't worry about that. The school name, you would just type Ronald Reagan Elementary. When it says teacher name, that would be the homeroom teacher for your child. So the homeroom teacher, the grade level, if there was any adult support provided, your abstract should be your abstract should be written after you finish the project. So like the last thing that you're going to type is this. This would be after everything else is done. So you can see here where it's asking, you know, does your project involve, and then you'll go through and you'll answer those questions. Now, here's what I want to show you is that right here, the county has told you, if you are saying yes, then you need to include an additional form. So if there are human participants and we want to make sure that you got permission, if students are, I don't know, let's say they're tasting ice cream, and based on the color of the ice cream, students think that a certain flavor exists. Well, even if they're tasting something and it's harmless, it's just ice cream, you still need to have that form in order for your child to participate at the district level and the county level. So that's why they go through and they ask these questions. If the answer is yes to any of these, then you need to find those forms. So where do you find those forms? So when we go through and we look at our Google Classroom, okay, and let me go back here. I just want to show you right here, we have the Riverside County Science and Engineering Fair rules and forms. So you would click on this one, you would look at the table of contents, and you'd find the form number that they're asking for. Just fill it out. And if you have any questions, I can also help you fill it out. I cannot sign it for you though. So that's something that we need to make sure that the adults understand, that it has to be filled out and signed by the parent. Okay. So we have all of these resources from the county. We talked about the web links to the digital resources. That's where I found the template for the display and for the abstract. That was all right here. Now, if you are wanting to do, I'm so sorry, you know what? I misspoke earlier. I just realized that they have a separate journal. So let me explain. So when you do a science fair project or an engineering project, they are looking for that additional journal. And the one that I showed you that was blank and then sometimes it had lines that looked like notebook paper, that is where you can show like, how did you come up with this idea? When you're testing it, what were the results of your testing? What happened? Why do you think it happened that way? Now, they are going to be requiring a journal. And here I just want to show you that there are choices. There are some different journals. So first of all, there is a separate journal that is for kindergarten, first grade, and second graders. So that's what we call our primary grades. If you are doing a project that is a science experiment, then you would want to use this journal here. And when you open it, it's going to say Annual Science and Engineering Fair, Science Project Journal. And then this is the year. Now that's different because if you are wanting to do an engineering project, like for example, that balloon powered car, you would want to click on this one for the engineering project. Notice how in the title it says Engineering Project Journal and then this year. So you would go through, you would fill out your child's information. You can see here that there are many steps to it. Sometimes I know people get a little concerned about, well, what category is it? So let's talk just briefly about the categories. So this one is for the engineering project. And when we go down through the categories, notice there are numbers. And so when we look here, notice that it says at the bottom here, number 9, engineering, electrical, and mechanical. So anything related to computer engineering, controls, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, robot mechanics, solar electric generation, thermodynamics, that would be under that category. And the honest truth is that if you're just not sure what category it is, don't panic. We can always do the category at the end. So mainly doing the project, that's the biggest part. We can talk and we can work together to determine which category best fits your child's project. So don't panic too much about, oh, I don't know. So when you go through, they explain here, this is what the judging criteria is. This is what they're looking for. There is no interview. Just so we're very clear again, at the elementary level, the children are not going to be interviewed. They do not have to do a video that explains their project. They don't have to at the elementary level. Middle school and high school, yes, they have to. So you can see here is another abstract. There's the blank form, I guess is what I want to say. Now, during the engineering, it says what's the description of a practical need or a problem to be solved? What's the definition or the criteria for the proposed solution? And what is the explanation of constraints? That gets involved and it's longer than I probably should put on this recorded video. So I won't go into that. But if you want to do an engineering project, we can talk another time. We can set up another Zoom session and I'm happy to talk with you after school. So you can see how it has places there. You just type. Now, the beauty of everything being digital is that once you've typed it on this journal, the honest truth is you can copy and you can paste onto the digital display board. So you could, obviously, you would probably need to shorten it. So when we think about this display board, notice it looks kind of small, the type, the font. So anyway, so you'd want to make sure that you're not just blanket copying and pasting everything, because it's obviously not going to fit like that. So we talked about the journal. We talked about how that's helpful for that little display. We talked about the rules. Let me see now. We talked about the abstract. We talked about that the county does require forms, and that's why when you complete this abstract form and answer the questions below, it will tell you which form you need. So that's designed to help and guide you through that. Okay, so let's see here. Just thinking of anything that I have not covered. Oh, so this here, they have also, if your child is really loves math, and you know, they would love to do a project that's either on mathematics or robotics, maybe a computer design, you know, computer graphics, computer programming. So when you think about that, this would be the journal that you would want to use for those types of projects. And so again, you would go through and you would type as you're going through the process. When we think about a robotics, mathematics, or computer project, this is what the judges are looking for. So you would want to kind of use that to guide you. Please remember though, that when you see the words display board, there is no cardboard display board this year. Everything is digital. So that's why we call it a virtual science and engineering fair. So all of those resources, all of them are found on our Google Classroom. So this is where you'd want to go. So the Reagan Virtual Science and Engineering Fair resources, this is where all of those documents and links are posted. So if you've joined us later and you're like, well, how did she get there? So the digital flyer that went out, the same one that you used to join our Zoom today, right here, it shows you a link and it says to join our Google Classroom. You would just click on that link. As I have said before, I would recommend that you have the students log on with their student Google email. And then that way it's linked onto their account. And then that way, as they're here at school, they can go on to this Google Classroom. You can have access to it at any time. Okay. Now, I should ask, are there any questions? I know we have a small group, but I am recording it. And that way, if there are any family members, families, students who could not make it today, we've recorded it. I've tried to be very thorough and make sure that everybody understands how you get to these places. But I just wanted to see if there was anything that I have not covered, or maybe it's just not clear yet. Okay, so the projects are all due Tuesday, December 14th. Remember that you would email them to me. You're not going to show up with a cardboard display board. So we're not doing anything in person this year. We will have our science fair the week of December 13th. The projects will come on December 14th by email. And then we will do the judging. And then we will have an award ceremony that week. Okay. So hopefully that answers that part of it, like when are they due? Mr. Baldwin, is there anything you can think of that I missed or overlooked?
I think you have covered just about everything really well. And I'll make sure that I'll be pushing out this information. I'll send it out to all parents via email, both the link to the Google Classroom Direct and a PDF of this slide. I'll also put it out in Class Dojo. Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, families. I appreciate you all. I know it's a little long. I'm sorry. It's just so much information. So if I can help, please feel free to email me. And if there's any questions you have, again, I'm happy to set up a Zoom. We can talk and meet and go into greater detail. Okay. Thanks again. I hope that you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I think I'll stop the screen share and I think we're done. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
And stop recording.